Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining me today. My name is Sarah Huffman, and I am the Art Rental and Sales Associate at the Art Gallery of Alberta. We welcome you to our Meet the Artisan series, a part of AGAlive. Here at the gallery, we embrace the teachings of Tatewa, a Cree phrase meaning welcome, there is room. In our house, even the virtual one, everyone is welcome. I'm delighted to be your host for this hour. Joining me today is artist Gerry Dotto. Before we dive into the subject, I'd like to highlight that this is an interactive event, and we'd like to hear from you. You are welcome to use the chat window on the side screen to share your comments as we discuss with Gerry Dotto. If a question gets unnoticed or unanswered at the time, please know that we will review all unanswered questions before we wrap up today's event. Gerry Dotto is a visual artist based in Sherwood Park, Alberta. His work explores our interaction with everyday forms of visual communication and how people relate to their urban environment. He's been practicing art for over 30 years and has worked in a variety of techniques, including photography, printmaking, mixed media, collage using recycled materials, aluminum-based work, and sculpture. Since completing his studies at the Alberta College of Art, he's exhibited in solo and group shows, both nationally and internationally. Most recently, he's shown in the Alberta Biennial of Contemporary Art in 2017, the Salt Spring National Art Prize, and the Florida Museum of Photographic Arts International Photography Competition, where he took first place in the Still Life division. Please take this time to give a warm welcome to our October artist, Gerry Dotto.
Hi.
Hello. There you are.
So,
nice to see you.
You're right. So yeah, thanks. Thanks for inviting me in for this Meet the Artist session. This is a first for me, and I'm excited to share my work and my process with everybody watching. So yeah, thanks.
Wonderful. Well, we're so excited to get to know you more, get to hear about your artistic process. And I'm really excited to share the presentation with everyone because your images are so wonderful, and we can get to know more about your process, starting with the presentation. So I'm just going to pop that on the screen here. All right.
Okay, thanks. So this is my earlier work. I did mostly printmaking and drawing. This is a screen print from 1982. So most of my prints back then were either mostly black and white or black and white with little bits of color, and the color elements quite often were hand colored using pencil crayons.
Oh, neat.
So this comes. This is part of my experience as a graphic designer and illustrator as well. Mm-hmm. When I attended the Alberta College of Art, and there I took the visual communications program, which is the commercial art program. Okay. And I figured I'd take something where I could get a job when I was done school as a graphic designer, and then I could always do my personal work on my own time. So that's basically the route I took. So I've worked as a graphic designer for about 35 years, and I've worked as a fine artist the same amount of time, but it's different parts of the day. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
So so this my work back then was similar to, I guess my fine art work was very similar to my illustrative work at that time. So,
and when you went, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Sarah.
I was going to ask, when you were in school, did you take a course similar to this style of work that inspired you to continue making works like that? Or was that something that you kind of played along with after school?
Yeah, I didn't really develop during school. I guess the things that influenced my style of work at that time were artists like M.C. Escher, Salvador Dali, European illustrators. at that time, illustration was kind of going under a big change. Things are getting more expressive, more abstract. So not what was commonly known as commercial art back then. So it's kind of a big change, and I really latched onto it, and it helped develop my style of work for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a fun fact for those who are watching, we actually sold this piece to an employee of the Art Gallery of Alberta because she actually had this in her office for quite a few years, and she moved to Montreal, and she really didn't want to part with this piece because she looked at it every day, and it's titled Rough Day at the Office, and she was like, this is going with me.
Yeah, a lot of people relate to this one because Rough Day at the Office,
Yeah.
It says it all.
I think one of my favorite elements of this piece is the arrow coming out of the gentleman's mouth. I can imagine what he's saying.
Yeah, you ain't in a good mood, that's for sure.
Wonderful. So let's pop over to our next piece here, Fruit of the Loon.
So Fruit of the Loon. So this is another screen print with hand-colored elements, and again, this one you can really see the influence of Dali and Escher in this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the playing of the optical space and abstract elements becoming like the squiggly ear is very Dali-ish, and
yeah, absolutely. For the folks who are watching who don't know the process of this, can you walk us through what kind of tools you need to do this? Do you have to do anything in a particular way to get a certain outcome?
Well, the printmaking I was doing back then was pretty straightforward, pretty simple. I was mostly kind of self-taught. I did a lot of my printmaking at the Snap Studios back then.
Oh, nice.
And actually I've been have been associated with Snap, and still am actually, for since the early 80s. And they were really big, and other artists there, and helped me develop my craft, and taught me some of the finer points of printmaking. So this is a silkscreen print, so it's a pretty basic process. You have your silk screen, and you build a release out of it, and or a mask, and then the parts that you don't want printed, in this case black, would just be masked out.
Right.
And then you draw the ink over the surface onto the paper, and there you go. There's your print.
Wonderful. And so everything has to be backwards, right? Or is that a different? Am I thinking of something else?
Oh no, yeah, not for screen printing. It does.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in this case, like if you look in the fly swatter on the left there, right at the very top, I've got my name engraved in, and now that's backwards, but that's backwards on purpose. So.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, just messing around with people's heads.
Wonderful.
This one is Big Apples. This is another screen print. This is from 1993, so this is getting a little bit farther on in my career. This is, again, very much my illustrative style at the time. And I was starting to incorporate text to a much larger degree. Again, that's another influence from the graphic design. And that's the thing I found between doing both fine art and graphic design is one would influence the other. So there are elements of graphic design, particularly the use of text and different uses of text, would certainly inform my fine art work. And then a lot of the fine art work, specifically the illustrative parts of it, would influence the illustrations I was doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you work on those at similar times, or were you kind of wrapping a piece up and then pulled inspiration from it to put to another piece, or did you have multiple things on the go?
Yeah, for the most part, I have almost always had several different pieces on the go at the same time.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely a crossover from things I'm working on simultaneously, as well as things I've worked on in the past, as well as things I'm planning to work on. So always lots on the go. Yeah.
We got a message from Michelle letting us know that this is one of their favorite pieces.
Oh, great. Yeah, this is one popular with a lot of people.
Yeah.
The fun thing about this piece is it's actually a word puzzle. It's not obvious, but if you read only the words in the balloons, so that's the things that the two-headed woman is saying.
Yeah.
It spells out the name of the city. So.
Oh.
So yeah, so it's like I say, it's not an obvious thing.
Yeah.
So I'll read it out to you. It says NEWYORK. And at first it just sounds like nonsense, but if you think of it as letters, NEWYORK.
There we go.
Tricky.
That's wonderful. Well, it's just so dynamic. I mean, just looking at it, you're obviously visually stimulated, but it has so many elements to it that you really need to look at it and appreciate it. And like, I didn't even think about that. And so
yeah, well, let's say it's not an obvious thing. So it's kind of fun once people realize that what's going on there. They really get a kick out of it. So yeah, that's a fun piece to have.
Yeah.
Okay, here's another print. This was commissioned by Snap for their spring 2009 newsletter.
Oh.
And it's another text-based image. And this one uses a cigarette package design as the basis for the design of the print. I used to be a cigarette smoker when I was young and foolish, and so this is based on the type of cigarettes I smoked back then. And the part that the text is on is actually cigarette papers that have been glued to the surface of the print, and then printed over top of again on the letterpress.
Yeah.
And if you look at the little guy in the circle, this is based on a player's cigarette package. So they always had the sailor on the cover of their package. But what I did is I took their sailor and I put my face on his head. So it's actually a little self-portrait of me on a cigarette package.
Yeah. And what is the piece on the far left with the portfolio of the face?
That is that's me again, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Without a mustache.
And that's why I didn't recognize it.
Yeah. But I do have a beret on there, so.
Yeah.
And the question is, does killing myself with cigarettes count as suffering for my art? And he's going, no. He's French. He's wearing a beret. So I'm not French. Well, I'm a little bit French.
All right. And this piece, you don't do the maths.
You don't do the maths. Yeah, this is another text-based one. So the big word is button. And that's a real button that's hanging down from the letter O there. So it's loosely stitched to the surface of the print. So it kind of, if you swing the print around, the button will flip around a bit there. And what the text is under button is BU pi or when. So if you say, if you pronounce the letters of button really quick, you get BU pi O-N.
Oh. Yeah. Another tricky.
So another yeah, so another kind of fun. I like to have a little elements of humor in a lot of my work as well too. So just make something a little different, make some fun to look at and see.
Awesome. And I noticed that the R and the 2 on the bottom there are also bolded in red. Does that have?
Well, if you look at the pi, look at the pi and the r and the 2, that's pi r squared.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the equation for the radius of a circle.
Yeah.
Or sorry, for the area of a circle. Pi r squared. There you go.
Yeah.
So all these fun little elements.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is another print. This is a relief print. So this was done on a letterpress. So this is the one where my elements are backwards on the press.
Okay.
So they'll be forward when they're printed. So this I had metal plates made for the text and the little images. So at this point, I was getting also more heavily involved with collage and working with recycled materials. And pretty much all the collage work I do uses recycled materials, mostly just household packaging things. So this is very reflective of that. Yeah.
We do have the detail of it as well, so I'll just pop over to that.
Yeah, so this is a detail. And again, this is because it's relatively small on the original print. I found when a lot of people look at the print, they don't actually look at the little printing on it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, again, it's just odd remark I made. First is the first paragraph is what you would typically see on a package, and the second paragraph is not.
Yeah. It was a little surprise when I read it the first time.
Yeah, and that's the whole point. Eh?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just a little fun surprise that you don't normally get when you see something like that.
Yeah.
But you have to be willing to take the time to read it, right?
Yes, absolutely. So for those of you who have bad eyes like me, I will try to read this the best I can. Just peel inner bag apart, re-roll inner bag after use to maintain freshness. And the second paragraph is, you don't need to read your cat's mind to know what she's thinking. Just listen to her talking in her sleep.
There you go. Of course. Everybody's cat talks in their sleep, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All right. And another one here as well.
Yeah. And again, you can see these are also pretty heavily influenced by my work as a graphic designer too. So in terms of packaging design and just general sort of use of graphics, this is another relief print, and this print is actually, I've cut and folded the paper to make a box, but it's been flat, so it's not very big. It's about 6 inches by 4 inches. So it's again based on the on a cigarette package design. This one includes the little the duty paid sticker that are on cigarette packages. That's up in the top. So I like those elements. So that's an actual duty paid sticker. I stuck it on. And along the bottom edge there, you can see the crumpled up tin foil from inside a typical cigarette package. So I'm not sure why I use cigarette package designs. They just seem to work well for me, I guess.
Do you have a preference of size of what you're working with?
Well, yeah, I tend to work smaller, like I don't know, 8 by 10, 5 by 6, that sort of thing. Just because of the space that I work in. I work out in my basement in my home, so my studio is a small room in the back in the corner in the dark. Yeah. And so it's mostly filled with stuff because I've been making art for 30 years now. So things tend to pile up. So it's almost more of a storage room, and I've got a small table that I can work on. That's all. So anything bigger than what I can fit on my tabletop, I have to go out, work in the garage, or I would say the printmaking I do out at Snap. Snap Studios. So that's a good resource as well.
Mm-hmm. So have you done a lot of preparation for pieces in your home and then taken things to Snap, or do you just do the whole process there?
Yeah, well, it depends on the piece, but I'll do as much prep as I can at home.
Yeah.
And then, so I have, it's easier for me to do the work once I get to the print studio. So.
Right. Yeah.
But again, this is again another text-based piece, and it's got kind of a funky poem. It's based on a Laurie Anderson song called "Smoke Rings," and it's sort of a mishmash of French and Spanish and English, and it just kind of goes on about the hazards of smoking and. Yeah. Again, just another fun piece stuff.
Right. Awesome.
So from there we go into some of my photography, and I didn't do a lot of photography. I was interested in photography, but I couldn't really afford the film and the processing and all that when I was younger. Yeah, because we were raising a family. We had 4 kids and we were a young family.
Yeah.
And so back then I was doing a lot of Polaroids. But when photography went digital and easier to access and more or less cheaper, I got a little more heavily into photography. So about around 2005 or so, 2005, 2010, I got more serious about my photography. So this is one of the first pieces I did that I thought was really successful. And it's actually a composite image. There's another tie-in to my graphic design experience. I actually got pretty good at Photoshop because of my job as a graphic designer. So I was able to take digital photographs and I can manipulate them in any way. So this is a composite image. The car and the snow and the subject there is my son Mark. They were all shot at different times, and then I put them together in this one piece.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, so it came together quite nice. I like the element of the car. Sort of half in the ditch. It had skidded out one night. We lived out on an acreage, and driving home one night, I saw this car in the ditch in the snow, and I liked how the back end was full of snow, but the rest of the car just disappeared into the blackness.
Yeah. So, absolutely.
And then, and then I got the other elements and put them together, and there you go.
Yeah. Well, and the brake light also with the red of your son's hat just complements so well.
Yeah. It really ties together nice.
So do you have a preference of working with Polaroid or with digital because you can manipulate it more, or?
Well, it depends on the image. The Polaroids I did, and actually that's sort of what got me into the taking photographs of signs.
Right.
The signs I saw, it was really struck me as sculptures, I guess, just out there, and so I started photographing them as thinking of them as sculptures, and the Polaroids I found they were great. As an analog medium, I thought they're terrific, and depending on the type of work I do, I'll still shoot Polaroids, but for I like the idea of having big photos too. The photos I print are usually 20 by 30 average size, so I like being able to print big. So
yeah, absolutely.
It's nice to have the digital photographs and to work with that.
Yeah. And like the ability to be able to work with both of those is really important, and understanding how each of them work, I think, is really neat too.
Oh yeah, yeah, and they're actually completely different.
Yeah.
In so many ways. So yeah, it depends on the type of image you want to do, and so yeah.
Cool. So on to the next one. You did mention this a little bit about signs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is from a series called Flow of Traffic Theory, and what that series is primarily is they're road signs that have been covered over or beat up or somehow had their message covered or changed. So that's the whole idea behind this series. And again, that sort of ties into my use of text in my images. It in this case, it's more sense of having the message blocked or distorted, and so that's what I'm looking at with these images here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so these covered signs, again, these are the ones that I was seeing as being very sculpture-like.
Yeah, absolutely. This one is so visually pleasing to me.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know what it is, if it's the dark sky and then the brightness in the foreground, or just the shapes of everything. I don't know.
Well, it's a really interesting image because of the variety of the types of elements in there, like from the orange pylons to the the back of the stop sign that's got the odd marks, and then in the background you see the sort of oil refinery towers, and then over to the left there's the hay bales and the sandbags. Yeah. So nice variety of elements in there.
And when did you go out and do this series kind of all in one go, or was this an ongoing project for you?
Yeah, no, it was an ongoing. Actually, still is ongoing. I see, if I see any interesting signs, I still like to go out and photograph them. Not as active with these as I once was, because I'm looking for something different in terms of signs. So I've kind of photographed kind of a large variety of signs already. And but yeah, it's an ongoing process, and and this is another one that goes in the series. This one is it's been a popular print for me. A lot of people have been just found interest in this one, I think, just because it's so familiar.
Yes.
Right, going down Highway 2 to Calgary, which we do on a relatively regular basis.
Right.
And it's just the back of one of those big signs that shows you how far all the cities are or whatever. But obviously, very different perspective. Becomes very abstract image, and that's the thing too about these road sign photos. Is for me, they're very much abstract images.
Yeah, absolutely. We did just get another message from Michelle letting us know that Evelyn loves this piece. Thank you, Evelyn.
That's my granddaughter. That's my new granddaughter.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, she's an emerging artist as well.
Perfect. Yeah, this one is a really neat piece. I love the title, A Cautionary Tale. I just feel like there's such a story behind this, and I want to know what the story, what it is.
Well, the story is, again, it's me playing with messaging on road signs. This now yield is, the word yield is obviously spelled incorrectly here. So this is a sign that I had, the small yield sign is one that I had made up.
Yeah.
And I went out and bolted it to a real yield sign and photographed it.
Yeah.
So this is one of my, what I call my covert operations. So dealing or yeah, you're not allowed to manipulate road signs, or it's illegal. So I'm trying to be careful when I do it. I know this is something that I've done, but the intent of the law is, of course, they don't want signs changed so that people won't get into car accidents, obviously.
Yeah.
So I'm very careful that when I'm doing it, doing it either in a low traffic area, if I am adjusting it, I'm doing it in such a way that it won't affect traffic. So it won't be causing accidents. And in this case, I just had the sign up long enough for me to photograph it, then I took it back down right away.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
So
if we ever see you on the side of the highway, we know the series is coming out.
Well, that's where I've been caught lots of times, on the side of the highway. But I like the idea of playing with language and playing with people's expectations.
Yes.
To see a yield sign, you got to do a double take, right, before you kind of catch on that it's been spelled wrong.
Right.
So this is another photo series I did called Two Wheelers. The story behind this is kind of fun. I was visiting my daughter in Calgary, and they were living in a large apartment complex. And we went down in their car. We're driving through their underground parking lot. And as you're going down the different levels of the parking lot, I'm looking at the parking stalls, and it's set up so that there's hooks on the wall, so the residents can hang their bikes on the wall.
Yes.
So as you're driving through the parking lot, I'm looking at these stalls, and there's these bikes hung on the wall, and it looks like they're floating through space as you go down through the parking lot. So that's what really struck me at first.
Yeah.
So I thought, man, this looks terrific, right? So I got to get my camera out and photograph some of these bikes floating through the air.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine that when you're driving by them, it almost feels like they're also moving. Did that?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and that was very much the experience. So as I went down and I started photographing the bikes, you start to see the residents also putting other things up in their parking stalls.
Right.
So you have a limited surface, right? You've got a flat wall. You got to put, you can hang a couple things up there or lean it against the wall. Or so I based my whole series on these individual parking stalls and the things that they have hanging up or leaning up against the walls.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too, because you almost get to know that person in a way. Like with this previous image, it feels like, oh, I can relate to you, or I can get to know you because of your pink basket on the front of your bike.
Yeah.
Right? Or the winter tires being stored. This one's interesting. Do you know what's behind the tarp?
I'm not sure. Could be another bike, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, that's the mystery, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the thing about these two now is they sort of struck me as each one is his own little art installation.
Yeah.
And these people have this limited amount of space, and that's what I like too, is the big yellow stripes on either side. So that defines your space that you have to work in. You get to set up either your tarp or your bikes or whatever it is that strikes your fancy.
Your coolant.
Your coolant, yeah. Lots of coolant out there.
Yeah, awesome.
And so this is a photo from the Fence exhibition. And this was a fun one for me to get into. It's an international exhibition. I started it out in New York, and it was I'm not sure how many years, maybe only about 10 years or so that it's been going on. It hasn't been that long.
Yeah.
And it starts in New York, and then would go to about another half a dozen cities in the States. And what is a public photography exhibition. So each artist in the show has 5 photos. And what they're done is to just print it on this long tarp and hung up in a public space outside. And it usually goes for a couple blocks long. There's usually about, I don't know, 20 artists or so that has work up. So this is good. So this particular one, they have one location in Canada that they go to, which happens to be in Calgary.
Oh, nice.
So I thought it was great. So we got to have our work up in the Calgary exhibition. Now the only bad thing is normally these shows are in the summer when people can go outside and enjoy the weather and see. But the one in Calgary, they coordinated with the photography festival in February, which is not a good time to have an outdoor photography exhibit. So at the time of this photo, it was that February, which was 2019. February 2019. Yeah. It was minus 30 pretty much all month. So so not the best time to have an outdoor photo exhibit.
Yeah, absolutely. It shows the true resilience of your following and the audience.
It's still nice to get it out there.
Yeah, awesome. So now we're going back to the 90s.
This is going back again. So I thought we'd have a look at some other stuff I was doing back then. I was involved in mail art. Was a big thing for me, and it was just more of a release, just a fun way to I don't know, not be too serious about my work and create some work. And what mail art is, or it was back then anyways, someone would host a mail art exhibition. And it'd be anywhere in the world, and ideally you create something and you would mail it to them. Simple as that. Now, for a purist, your piece of mail art would actually be the thing that was mailed, as opposed to making something, putting it in an envelope and mailing it. You would just stamp the stamp on it, and away it goes. So this is one of those. So this is actually a print as well. It's a lino cut print. And with some rubber stamping and stenciling. But the print mimics the stamp.
Oh, so it does. I didn't even see that.
Yeah, so that was the whole point of this one. So the outside shape with the beveled edge and then the banana looks like the whale. And the words banana 90 look like Canada 78. So that was the whole idea behind that one.
That's awesome. And so working with lino cut, what are some things that you enjoy about working with it and some things that you don't really like working about with it?
Well, I don't think there's anything I don't like working about it. It's a fun process. And again, my images are usually pretty simple, so they're kind of easy to do. And it's just, fun playing with ink and getting your hands dirty and
Awesome.
Again, some more mail art based work. This is a design based on a parking receipt ticket. Again, very much text-based type image. This has more textural elements in the surface of the paper with the little hole punches, and so trying to create some texture in there. The embossing of the numbers on the side, and again with using the stamp to as an element of the design.
Those are awesome. And how long does a process like this usually take you?
Depends on the piece. Something like this would probably take me, well, once I figured out what I wanted to do, once I had the design figured out and, you know, thought of exactly what I want to put on it, to actually build it, it would probably take me a couple weeks. This being an addition too, right? There are, I think there's 28 in this particular edition. Thing about this one too, sorry, if you want to go back to that one. Sorry, Sarah.
That's okay.
I wanted to mention this too. A lot of the work I'm doing now, and this is a good example too, is two-sided. So they're both sides of the piece are images.
Yeah.
So this is when I first, one of the earlier versions of when I started doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they both have a purpose for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Neat.
Again, and this is more mail art. This is another double-sided piece.
Yeah.
The part on top, those are Tim Hortons cups.
Mm-hmm.
And I just cut off sections of it. And this is where you roll up the rim.
Yeah.
So these ones, I think I'll say play again or something like that.
Yeah.
They're all losers.
It looks all too familiar to me. I never win those.
Yeah, I know. I never win. Never win with those.
And on the
other
image is, what is that one?
Pardon me?
What is the bottom image?
The bottom part, so this is a good example of sort of typically what I do with my collage work now. Mm-hmm. Involves use of recycled packaging, mm-hmm. Specifically like the flaps from boxes or crates and mm-hmm. that sort of thing. So I'm looking at the color marks, registration marks, barcodes. Mm-hmm. Those elements are kind of the main elements that I'm using in my collage work now.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Bag of snow.
Bag of snow.
You don't see those very often.
No.
So this one and actually the previous one too. These were for a mail art show at the Art Gallery of St. Albert.
Okay.
Yeah, a couple years ago. And this was a fun project. I just thought of it's more a conceptual piece, and again, it's sort of based on it's a digital print, but it's based on my use of recycled materials. So it's made to look like a box that has been flattened.
Yeah.
And there was is a piece that I put together and then put in an envelope and mailed it. So it doesn't have a stamp on it. But the idea behind it is it was a box with a bag of snow in it, and it went in the mail, and the snow melted. And so now the box is all wet. And yeah, so that's how it looks.
Yeah. It's so fun and creative, and the branding of No Name looks so recognizable that it's almost like, oh my gosh, do they actually sell that? Like, that was one of my first thoughts was, can I actually go get that at No Frills and Superstore?
Sure. You just have to go to the right store. I think they're sold out right now, though.
Yeah. Awesome.
So here's a sample of some of the collage work I've been doing. This goes back to 2005. So this involves collage as well, recycled materials as well as Polaroid. So this is why I started incorporating some of my Polaroids in with collage work.
Yeah. That's really awesome.
Okay, and this is here's a typical example of a type of collage I'm doing now. So it has sort of the requisite elements, the barcodes and the color keys, those elements. A lot of the collage work I'm doing now, I like to incorporate plastic as well as paper and card based. And so that requires me to find a way of connecting it to the paper elements. So they're normally either sewn on or stapled, or I use the little round shoelace eyelets.
Yeah.
So those are fun little elements to use. And in this particular one, on the back is actually a little plastic bag, and inside the bag is a match and a penny and a little black metal piece. And the idea behind that is that it's somewhat kinetic. If you're holding the piece in your hand, I've designed these pieces so that they are made to be held in your hand.
Right.
So very. And if you shake it around, those little pieces will move inside the bag. So that's what that.
Yeah, there's probably an audio element to it as well, because when you're holding it and the bag kind of crumples or you hear it jingling around. Yeah.
Yeah, to a certain degree for sure.
Neat. And these guys.
Okay, this is the piece that I created for the Alberta Biennial in 2017, and it is it's actually quite big. It's about almost 5 feet high by about 8 or 9 feet wide. So all the pieces together. Cool. But this is based on one of my smaller little collage pieces, and basically just blew it up, 2,000%. So what I did in creating this piece is actually try to recreate as close as possible the actual little pieces. The original pieces are only about 2 inches by 3 inches big, so quite small.
Yeah.
So that included this is it showing where it was hanging at the biennial.
Wow.
So you can see how much larger it actually is.
Absolutely. It's very impactful.
Yeah. And again, I'm trying to play with the elements of torn edges, cut edges, there's die cut edges. So I'm trying to replicate those elements. And the surfaces of the paper, the thickness of it. So trying to get that all accurate as if it was relative to the 2 inch by 3 inch pieces.
Right. That's awesome.
So now getting back to the road sign. So this is again. At first, I was photographing road signs, and thought, well, I can actually make some of these. So I found a manufacturer who would make some signs for me, and this is kind of a typical of my approach to the signs.
Yeah.
So again, it's message based, but again, it's you look at it and you got to do a double take because
yeah, restrooms ahead. Yeah.
So having the restrooms ahead sign underneath totally changes the meaning of the sign. So it's, again, fun to play with meanings and interpretations and different points of view, right? That's what all these are about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is another fun piece, and this this one makes use of sort of publicly sourced materials, I guess you would say, and that would be the license plates on this one. The license plates are actually 2 real license plates. These I had these on my wife's and mine car.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and yeah, she wasn't too pleased about that, but she, being a trooper, she went ahead and helped me out with that anyways.
Right.
So I had the idea for this sculpture, long before I actually built it. First thing I did is I had to order the license plates. They're custom-made license plates, so you had to order them and get them registered and put on my car, and then drive around with them on my car for a year.
Oh my goodness!
And then after a year, I was able to take them off my car and put them on my sculpture.
So it was a process. This one was a process for sure.
Yeah, it was a process. Yeah, but it's a fun process. You have an idea, and you have to take certain steps to get it done.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the plates were the first thing I had for this, and after that I had to get it's a signpost, a wooden signpost, and it's a sock. I had to find a long enough plain white sock that would fit on my signpost, and built a little structure to have my shoe to fit in my shoe, so it would look like it was standing on his toe.
Right.
And then get the manhole cover as the base.
Yeah. And where did you get the manhole cover from?
From a manhole cover manufacturer.
That's awesome. So yeah, this project was quite involved, I guess, hey?
Yeah, well, it wasn't that involved. It's basically, because I said the same thing. I want to use a manhole cover for my base. Where do I get a manhole cover?
Right.
Yeah. They want to steal one. They're too heavy to try.
I was gonna say you can't take that off the side of the highway for sure.
Yeah, you leave a big hole in the ground too.
Yeah.
And so this is one of more recent pieces, and this is taking my work with signs just another step further here. This is it's just a really big stop sign. It's 4 feet by 4 feet. So
oh wow.
And the whole thing, I guess, is just is kind of a shock value, I guess, just to look at it, to expect to see one thing and not see it.
Yeah. Yeah, tempering those expectations that we're so accustomed to seeing.
Yeah. And again, it's just point of view, and so.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that is the end of our presentation. If there's any questions from the audience, please send them in right now. And I'm going to ask Gerry a couple more questions before we wrap up today. So out of all of the elements that we spoke about today and all of the mediums, do you have a favorite, or do you have one that you just keep going back to?
I don't know that I necessarily have a favorite.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy doing all these different things. I think what I enjoy is the variety, as opposed to being stuck to doing just one thing. It's nice to be able to do a number of different things, eh? And that's I know it can be a bit of a problem sometimes for artists. People expect you to do one type of thing, but I like to go in different directions, and I like to think that the piece or the idea for the piece dictates how it will be done.
Right.
To a certain degree.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I'll see something and I'll say, okay, so this has to be done this way.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you find that at this point in your career, you've developed more of an efficiency with your artistic practice, or do you still let things kind of percolate, I guess you could say?
And again, that sort of depends on the project too. There's some projects that'll work on over years, like say like the sculpture with the license plates.
Yeah.
I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew it would take a certain amount of time to get all the different elements together. So things like that, I'll let them work over time. And then I've got some projects on the go now that I am in sort of mid-process,
right,
without different elements working on at different times. A lot of the smaller collage pieces now I find they're sort of kind of quick and dirty, I guess. I can do them in a day or a couple days.
Yeah.
I'll just want to relax, not think too much about what I'm doing. They're more sort of intuitive pieces, I guess.
Right.
I'll have, like, I've got a large selection of recycled materials laying around, and I'll just start picking through them and seeing what works together, and just kind of feel it out. So yeah.
Cool. Are there any projects that you've revisited and taken things away from or enhanced in some way?
Not so much. Like I keep a series of sketchbooks, so I'm always writing down ideas and concepts and that sort of thing. And I'll go back to some old sketchbooks and to some old ideas that I may have forgotten, and I'll go, oh yeah, I remember this. I think I'll try and do this now. Maybe I wasn't able to do it back then for whatever reason.
Right.
But I'll have the itch to go ahead and do it now. So there's some of that going on.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I don't see any comments from the folks in the chat. So I think we're going to wrap up for today's event. Again, I'm really excited and really thankful to have this connection with you, especially during this time, and get to know more about your practice, because whenever I'm in art rental and sales and I see the artwork that we have of yours, I'm always like, I want to talk to him and know what this is and get that communication with you, because it's really fun to hear the artist's perspective. And I'm really appreciative that you were able to join us tonight.
Well, thanks, Sarah. I appreciate the invitation as well, and it's been a real pleasure to share a little bit of my work and a little bit of my process with everyone. And yeah, it's been great. Thanks.
Wonderful. Absolutely. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Please keep an eye out for further Meet the Artists, and we will see you next time.
Okay. Bye. Bye-bye.